Hello friends. Today we are going to start it with the biography of different pioneers in homeopathy. Now, what is the importance to study the biography? It is very important to study the biography of different pioneers as we have to know who are the pioneers in our pathy that develop our pathy and what are their conversions, how they converted towards homeopathy, and what is their main contributions to our pathy as our pathy grows very nicely. And we should motivate from their biography as we have to do something for our pathy, and our pathy become the one of the greatest pathy in the branch of medicine. And for this reason it is very important to study the biography of different pioneers in our pathy. So today we are going to start with the biography of Dr. James Tyler Kent. In this, the pioneers who are most important in our pathy are first one, that is Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, then Dr. Burning Hussein, Dr. Kent, Dr. Herring. These are the most important pioneers to study in homeopathy, and along with this, other pioneers are also important. So today we are started with the biography of Dr. James Tyler Kent. In this, in every biography, we studied the three important points, that is, first one, introduction, second, conversion, and the third one, contribution. In introduction, we studied about their birthplace, their family members, and regarding their education. Then, in conversion part, we are going to study about how they converted towards homeopathy. And the last part, that is contribution. In contribution part we are going to study about what are their main contributions to the homeopathy. So these are the three parts in which every biography is studied. In this, first started with the introduction of Dr. James Tyler Kent. He is one of the most important pioneer in homeopathy. So what is the date of birth in this? 31st March 1849 is the date of birth of Dr. James Tyler Kent. In his birthplace is Woodhull, that is in New York, in America. Then date of death is 5th June 1916. Then death place is Montana for vacation. Then reason for death is, that is, bright disease. At the last of his life, he suffered from a bright disease, and that ends into the death on 15th June 1916. Then his father name was Stephen Kent and mother name was Caroline Tyler. So this is introductory part about the James Tyler Kent. Then about the education part. In education part, he was studied the elementary education from the Franklin Academy, that is from the Pratt. Then secondary education he gives from the Woodhull Academy, that is Woodhull. Then he studied at the age of 19, that is the from the Madison University at Hamilton, New York State in 1868. Then he took his degree from Madison University at Hamilton, New York State in 1870. Then he went to study medicine at the Faculty of Medical College, where he passed his final examination brilliantly and qualified as a doctor of medicine. Then he subsequently attended two courses of lectures at the Eclectic Medical Institute of Chicago. Then he had also got knowledge in naturopathy, homeopathy, and chiropractic. That is, he mainly practiced in eclectic medicine. So what is eclectic medicine? That is the branch of medical science that deals with the using of some botanical remedies, and with the use of botanical remedy also use the physical therapy. That is, they use some herbal medicines to treat the patient. That is the eclectic medicine. In this, in early practice, in his 26th year, he was married and set up practice as an eclectic, that is, choosing the best forms from the various systems. Physician in the city of St. Louis, in the state of Missouri. As one who was hardworking and diligent, he was very successful and became a member of Eclectic Medical Institute. As homeopathic teaching here was only superficial, he was not too much impressed by the homeopathic medicine. At that time, he was impressed with the eclectic medicine and he practiced with eclectic medicine. Then, after marriage, how he converted towards homeopathy. The second part comes, that is, how he converted towards homeopathy. In this, the conversion to homeopathy. In this 1874, he settled at St. Louis, Missouri, where he took up medical practice. Then in 1876 took a post as a professor of anatomy at American College in St. Louis. In same time, being actively connected with severally eclectic journals in the capacity of writer, and also took an earnest part on the councils of the Eclectic National College at St. Louis during the period of 1877 and 1878. Then the part that how he converted towards homeopathy, that comes, that is the event that happens in his domestic life. In this, it was an event in his domestic life that changed his professional practice and his future. In 1878, he adored his wife and he was deeply troubled about the worsening state of debility, anemia, and persistent insomnia had kept her bedridden for months. It was at his time that he underwent a period of considerable dissatisfaction with the therapeutic methods being practiced by himself and his colleagues. Neither his own eclectic practitioners nor those of allopathic school could he bring about an improvement in his wife's condition. When it became visibly worse, that Mrs. Kent begged him as a last resort to call in a certain homeopathic doctor. This is the event that happened in his life regarding how he converted towards homeopathy. Then Dr. Phelan, Dr. Kent consulted Dr. Phelan for the treatment of his wife. Kent could not refrain from smiling on seeing the manner of questions Dr. Phelan asking to his wife. Under the treatment of him, Mrs. Kent had recovered her health completely within few weeks. Kent was deeply impressed by what he had witnessed, and his naturally frank and straightforward character compelled him to apologize to his colleagues, that is, Dr. Phelan. The cure of his wife moved him so deeply that he was determined to make a thorough investigation into this type of therapy. That is, under the guidance of Dr. Phelan, he studied homeopathy, and this is the event how he converted towards homeopathy. This is conversion of Dr. Kent towards homeopathy. That is during his lifetime, that is he was practicing eclectic medicine. But during that time, it was an event in his domestic life. That event happened in his domestic life that changed his professional practice and his future. That his wife was ill. That is, and having developed some trouble which failed to respond either to eclectic and allopathic treatment. His wife was suffering from the that is severe insomnia, anemia, and that is weakness that was so severe that he was she was becoming bedridden. And during that time the eclectic medicine not working, the allopathic medicine also not working. That is, since her condition was becoming worse and his condition becoming so worse, and for at her request sent for Dr. Phelan, and at her request Dr. Kent sent for the Dr. Phelan, a homeopath of repute. His method of questioning appeared to Dr. Kent to quite nonsensible. That is, that incident that happens for the cure of his wife. That is, he called for the doctor, that is Dr. Phelan. He was a renowned homeopath at that time in that place. And when he called Dr. Phelan, Phelan was asking questions regarding his history. And while asking that question, Dr. Kent smiling that how he asked the questions and what is the relation of his illness to that questions. And he laughed at Dr. Phelan. But after taking a thorough case taking, Dr. Phelan gives some medicines to his wife. That is, when he gave a few sugar pills with instructions that a few of these are to be dissolved in a cup of water and a teaspoon full to be given every 2 hours till he fell asleep. Dr. Kent could only smile, and however, in differences with wife's wishes, he gave her a teaspoonful and retired to his study. That is his books. He forgot to give her second dose. When he remembered and came of his study, and after hours 4 hours to give the second dose, he was surprised to find her sleeping, which was miracle to him as the previous treatment had failed to cure her insomnia. Dr. Phelan continued his visits and Mrs. Kent steadily improved and her ailments is completely cured. Means during that time the incident happened, that is of the curing of her wife. That is, her wife was suffering from insomnia, weakness, and anemia, and he became bedridden. But when he called Dr. Phelan at first visit, Dr. Kent was not interested in Dr. Phelan, and he was not having faith in the homeopathy. But after Dr. Phelan gave medicines to the Mrs. Kent, and Mrs. Kent completely get cured, as eclectic medicine and allopathic cannot done work, but the small pills of homeopathy can cure her wife completely, and that incident make her to convert towards homeopathy. That is, under the guidance of Dr. Phelan, he studied homeopathy. His study of homeopathy brought him such certainty and convictions that he know no peace until he was able himself to apply this doctrine with all the conscientious and strictness it demanded. Means after the conversion to homeopathy, or he do very nicely about the homeopathy, that is he studied very hardly and he totally converted towards homeopathy. And during that time, through exceedingly hard work, he confirmed the absolute veracity of the law of similars and established the need for individualization. He confirmed also the unbelievable efficacy of minute doses thanks to the process of dynamization discovered by the founder, that is Samuel Hahnemann. Then he thanks to Dr. Samuel Hahnemann that he founded the so miracle pathy that is based on the law of similars, that is similia similibus curantur. And after that he retired from the eclectic medicines. he left the eclectic medicine and he started practicing the homeopathy. Then, after the conversion to homeopathy, Dr. Kent having contributions, that is contributions of Dr. Kent towards homeopathy, that is in 18 as a teacher. Dr. Kent as a good teacher, he as a good doctor, and he as a good author or a writer. In this, he became a good teacher, he became a good doctor, and he became a good writer. So in 1881, a position as a professor of anatomy at the homeopathic college at Missouri. As a teacher, he has become a professor of anatomy at the homeopathic college of Missouri. Then in 1882, he was appointed to the chair of surgery at the Missouri Homeopathic Medical College at St. Louis. Then in 1882, he was appointed as the chair of surgery at the Missouri Homeopathic Medical College at St. Louis. Then in 1883, he took the charge of professor of materia medica in Missouri Homeopathic Medical College, St. Louis, after retirement of the Dr. Wellmere. He remained in that post until 1888. Means in first he became the professor of anatomy, then he shifts towards the chairperson of surgery, then he shifts towards the professor or took the charge of professor of materia medica up to 1888. Then in 1890 to 1899, he moved to the Pennsylvania to take a position as a dean of professor in materia medica at the postgraduate homeopathic medical school of Philadelphia. Then during 1890 to 1899, he was a dean of professor of materia medica at the postgraduate homeopathic medical school at Philadelphia. Means from St. Louis he shifted towards the Philadelphia. Then in 1903 to 1908, he worked as a senior lecturer in materia medica at Honeyman Medical College and Hospital, Chicago. Then during 1903 to 1908, he worked as a lecturer in materia medica at Honeyman Medical College and Hospital at Chicago. Then in 1909, he taught materia medica at Herring Medical College and Hospital also. That is, he shifts towards the Herring Medical College and Hospital. Then Kent as a homeopath, Miss Kent as a doctor. Up till now, he was a lecturer, professor, dean of various colleges. Then Kent as a doctor. What are the contributions of Dr. Kent as a homeopath or as a doctor? In this, these contributions are very important of Dr. Kent that gives many new things to the homeopathy. In this, first is he advocated the use of 30, 200, 1m, 10m, 50m, cm, dm, and mm potency made on a centesimal scale. Means Dr. Kent was the first person who introduced the use of high potencies, that is use of high potencies made by Dr. Kent first. In this, he advocated the use of different potencies, that is having a dynamic form, means 30 potency, 200 potency, 1m potency, 10m potency, 50m potency, cm potency, dm potency, and mm potency. In this, first he began the practice with in first he began with the practice of low potencies, but he was not satisfied with that low potencies, and then later he resolved to test the 30 potency to see if there was any medicine in it. That is, he want to do the experiment regarding the 30 potency, that is any medicinal part is present in that or not. So he prepared with his own hands with the 30 potency of podophyllum with water according to centesimal scale after the method of Hahnemann, having been told that water was as good as alcohol. One dose of podophyllum cured a dangerously ill patient. He then realized the power of potentized medicines, and he thought of using more and more highly potentized remedy in his practice. Thus, he advocated the use of 30, 200, 1m, 50m, cm, dm, mm potencies made on centesimal scale. And after doing the experiment with that 30 podophyllum, he knew that the medicine in a dynamic form do a miracle work, and so he advocated to use the high potencies, that is from the 30 potencies up to potency, that is of centesimal scale. This is the first contribution of Dr. Kent as a homeopath, as use of high potencies in homeopathy, which will work very nicely. Then the second contribution, as he introduced the series of degrees in the treatment of chronic diseases. This is the second most important contribution of Dr. Kent regarding the chronic diseases. In this, he used the series of degrees of using the potencies. In this, Dr. Kent introduced the doctrine of series in degrees in the treatment of chronic diseases. He found that one potency is not sufficient to cure a chronic case. It will generally do for acute diseases. Many chronic diseases are cured by keeping the patient under the influence of one indicated remedy for 2 or more years. But this cannot be done with continuous curative action unless the doctrine of series in degrees is fully understood and used. In this, he introduced the series of degrees in chronic diseases. He told that is one dose or one potency is sufficient for acute diseases, but this is not sufficient for chronic diseases. And to treat the chronic diseases, we should not depend on a one potency for 2 to 3 years or 2 or more years. As we are treating the chronic diseases, in chronic diseases we need the higher potencies, as started with the 30 potencies. If this is not sufficient, we require to treat the chronic diseases with 200 potency, 1m potency, 10m potency. And this is the series of degrees as we increases the potencies. After giving the one potency, at next time we have to give the higher potency, then next time then higher potency, and this is called as a series of degrees. And this is introduced by Dr. Kent in the treatment of chronic diseases, and this is helpful for to cure the chronic diseases permanently. This is second contribution. Now the third contribution, he discovered that as there are octaves of the musical tones, so there are octaves in the single substance through which severally it is possible to correspond with various places of the interior organism of the animal cells. This is the third contributions of Dr. Kent, that is regarding the octaves of musical tones. That is, he discovered that just as there are octaves of musical tones, means in music there are octaves, so there are octaves in the simple substance also. He introduced as in simple substance also there are octaves through which severally it is possible to correspond with the various planes of interior organism of the animal cells, and through which we can easily correspond with that various planes of the interior of the organism of the animal cells. And these planes corresponds to similar remedy in 30 potency, 200, 1m, 10m, 50m, cm, dm and mm potencies. And we can correspond with these octaves of animal cell with that potencies, means the first we corresponds with the 30 potency, but the second animal cells can be correspond with the 200 potency. So in that case, this place corresponds to similar remedy in 30 to 100, 1 m, 10 m, and so on potencies. He found that when the action of 30 is completed, the patient needs the 200 potency to keep him under the remedial action for a time. Means when the action of 30 potency is over, we have to give the 200 potency. Means the 200 potency keep him under the remedial action for time. But when the action of 200 potency is exhausted, the patient requires the 1 m potency for the same remedy, and so on till the same remedy is higher and the highest potency cures him permanently. So in this way we have to give the potencies, that is after 30 we have to give 200, after 200 we have to give 1 m, and so on. And in this way the same remedy and soon till the same remedy in higher and highest potency cures the patient permanently. So this is the third contribution of Dr. Kent, that is regarding the octaves of musical tones. Then the fourth contribution is regarding, he discovered law of vital action and reaction as pointed out by Dr. Hahnemann in a more definite manner, that is regarding the fourth contribution, that is regarding the law of vital action and reaction. So what is the law of vital action and reaction? As he discovered that law as pointed out by Dr. Hahnemann in a more definite manner, as the law is, a medicine is too high to cure so long as it is capable of aggravating the symptoms belonging to the sickness in the first hours in acute and in the first few days of a chronic sickness. That is the law of vital action and reaction. What is law? A medicine is too high to cure so long as it is capable of aggravating the homeopathic symptoms belonging to the sickness in the first hours in acute and in first few days of a chronic sickness. Means this is a law regarding the homeopathic aggravation. He also found that homeopathic aggravation is essential from the application of the similimum in chronic cases. If there is only relief without homeopathic aggravation, the chronic sickness is superficially affected and shall require a deeper acting remedy to remove the vital disorder. In this fourth contribution, Dr. Kent discovered the law of vital action and reaction. And what this law said, that is while giving the medicine to treat the patient, there must be some aggravating symptoms that can be shown by the patient. As in acute diseases, the homeopathic aggravation can be seen in first few hours after giving the medicine, and in chronic cases it is seen in first few days after giving the medicine. That is, homeopathic aggravation must be seen. As when we see the homeopathic aggravation, that is slight homeopathic aggravation, that is the good sign, and that is our remedy is acting on a patient. And for this reason it is most important, that is the appearance of the slight homeopathic aggravations. And this Dr. Kent discovered the language of reaction and had shown the direction of the course of treatment immediately following the first dose, and how the multiple reaction following this step should be interrupted and the patient led scientifically towards complete recovery. And along with this he also explained about the observation of Dr. Kent, that is we call as a 12th observation of Kent, that is after giving remedy what should be happen to the patient. And this is totally scientific, that is after giving the medicine these are the 12 conditions that may be happen to the patient. In this we see this observation at, as the first observation is a prolonged aggravation and the final decline of the patient. This is the first observation that is discovered by Dr. Kent. Then second aggravation as long aggravation but final and slow improvement. Then third, the aggravation is quick, short, strong with rapid improvement of the patient. Then fourth, no aggravation with recovery of the patient. So when there is no aggravation with recovery of the patient, in that case there may be some lacunae or we cannot confirm that our remedy is acting or not. Then the fifth observation is the amelioration comes first and the aggravation comes afterwards. Then sixth is too short relief of symptoms. Then seventh, a full time amelioration of the symptoms yet no special relief of the patient. Then eighth observation is some patient prove every remedy they get. Then ninth observation is the action of the medicine upon provers. Then tenth observation is new symptoms appear after the remedy. Then 11th observation is when old symptoms are observed to reappear. And the 12th observation is symptom take the wrong direction. And in these all the cases there are some inferences regarding every observation, and this is totally a scientific observation that we see after giving the homeopathic remedy, that is how homeopathic remedy is acting. That will be explained very nicely by Dr. Kent in his 12th observation after giving the remedy, and this is regarding the homeopathic aggravation, that is law of vital action and reaction. In this slight homeopathic aggravation is very important. In acute cases it must be appeared in first few hours, and in chronic cases it must be appear in first few days after giving the medicine to the patient. So this is fourth contribution of Dr. Kent. The next contributions are, he also found out that the homeopathic aggravation is essential from the application of similimum in chronic cases. I will explain it, that is homeopathic aggravation. Then next contribution is he evaluated the symptom in a nice manner, imposing greatest value to the mental symptoms with their further classification. Means Dr. Kent explained very nicely about the symptoms, that is he discovered the general symptoms, or he classified symptom as a general symptoms and common symptoms. In general symptom he classified symptom into mental general symptom, physical general symptom and particular general symptoms. In this he gives importance to the mental symptoms. As mental symptoms he classified into, that is patient having the will, understanding and memory, that is he evaluates the symptom in a nice manner, imposing the greatest value to the mental symptoms with their further classification, as he did greatest importance to the will, then understanding and then memory, that is the former, they form the innermost of the man, and these are extended outward through the general physical organism. Means he classified mental symptoms into will, understanding and memory, that is he gives more important to the will, that is he classified mental symptoms. Then he again gives importance to the physical generals also. In physical generals we take the physical general as a symptoms regarding the appetite, then thirst, regarding the stool, urine, sleep, dream, then sweating. These are all the general condition or the general physical terms that are regarding the general body, and general symptoms are the symptoms we indicate as a I, that is I as a, that symptoms indicate the patient as a whole, and we can very nicely classify that these symptoms as a mental general symptom, physical general symptoms and particular general symptoms, and these general symptoms indicates as a man as a whole. Then next contribution is he did not attach much importance to the constitution as an aid to the prescribing. He says every individual is a constitution, means he cannot did not attach much importance to the constitution only, that he knew that each and every individual having a different constitution, And when we individualize that case, there is the importance of the constitution, that is every individual is a constitution. The next contribution is he proved many new medicines which have been described in his book, that is new medicines, clinical cases, lesser writings, aphorisms, percepts, etc. Then he introduced many new medicines to the homeopathy. Then the next contribution is regarding he also gives the 12 observation symptoms, that we discuss the 12 observation symptoms that are important after giving the medicines, and this is totally scientific. That is, he gives the 12 observations after giving the medicines. The next contribution is Kent is remembered for his arguments against the conventional germ theory of infectious diseases. That is, he very well explained about the germ theory of infectious diseases. That is the difference between the sick and sickness. That is, he very well explained about the diseases or the microorganisms are not the causes of diseases, but these are the product of diseases, as something prior in the body has happened and that will derange the vital force or the immunity of the person, and after that the microorganism attack the body. And he very well explained as the microorganisms are not the causes of diseases, but these are the product of diseases, and this is the argument regarding the germ theory of infectious diseases. This is also most important contribution of Dr. Kent. So these are the contributions of Dr. Kent as a doctor or as a homeopath. First, we see the contributions as a teacher. Then secondly, we studied contribution as a doctor or a homeopath. Now the third contributions regarding as a Kent as an author or a writer. What are the different books he published? That is the list of books. In 1879 he published, that is sexual neurosis, that is at St. Louis. Then in 1887, that is addressed before the International Hahnemannian Association at the its 7th annual meeting. Then in 1897, the most important book that is written by Dr. Kent, that is Kent's Repertory of Homeopathic Materia Medica. This is the most important contribution of Dr. Kent regarding as a writer or a author, that is of Kent's Repertory of Homeopathic Materia Medica. Then second most important book that is written by Dr. Kent is in 1900, that is Lectures of Homeopathic Philosophy. This is the most important philosophy to study the homeopathy, that is Lectures on Homeopathic Philosophy. Then in 1905, that is Lectures on Materia Medica. This is also very important book in Homeopathic Materia Medica, that is Lectures on Homeopathic Materia Medica, in which each and every remedy is explained in very nicely as a story of every medicine or a remedy. That is very detailed mental symptoms are described in this book, that is Lectures on Homeopathic Materia Medica. Then in 1926 he gives the books, that is New Remedies, Clinical Cases, Lesser Writings, Aphorisms. Then what the doctor needs to know in order to make a successful prescription. This is also most important book that is written by Dr. Kent, that is what the doctor needs to know in order to make a successful prescription. This is the Kent as an author or a writer. Then Kent as an editor. What are the or as a member of editor? The Homeopathic Courier, the Journal of Homeopathics, and the Homeopathician. Then he was the president and the trustee of Chicago Homeopathic Hospital also. He was the president and trustee of Chicago Homeopathic Hospital also, and he was the member of American Institute of Homeopathy, International Hahnemannian Association, State Homeomedical Society, British Homeopathic Society, as he was the member. Then only those who have handled the repertory of Kent can understand the magnitude of his deep study, patience, and remarkable perseverance. This book is a monument of all that Dr. Kent stood for, and it is doubtful it in May any such book would be produced, as it was a redundant and unnecessary, and at the best can only be a repetition. So the one who can handle the book of repertory can understand the magnitude of his deep study, how Dr. Kent deeply studied the homeopathy, his deep study, his patience, and his remarkable perseverance regarding the homeopathy, that how he studied homeopathy and what he gave to the homeopathy. So this is Dr. Kent who who spent his whole life for the homeopathy, and by his contributions we can motivate to do something for the homeopathy. So in biography of Dr. Kent we studied the first introductory part about the Dr. Kent, that is he was born in Woodhull on 31st March 1849. Then in how he studied, then he became a, in introductory part regarding his education, that is he became a doctor of medicine, that is in eclectic medicine. Then he practiced eclectic medicine. Then in conversion part we studied how he converted towards homeopathy, that is incident of cure of his wife by Dr. Phelan, and how the miracle of homeopathy brings him to study the homeopathy under the guidance of Dr. Phelan. And after that we studied the contributions of Dr. Kent as contribution as a teacher, that how he become the professor, then HOD, then the dean of various colleges, then Kent as a doctor. This is most important contributions of Dr. Kent as the contributions as a doctor or as a homeopath, as the use of high potency, then the doctrine of series in degrees. Then next contribution is use of discovered the octaves of musical tones. The next contribution discovered the law of vital action and reaction, that is regarding the homeopathic aggravation. Then how he explained scientifically the 12th observation of Dr. Kent. Then the, that is importance of general symptoms, that is regarding the mental symptoms, that is mental symptoms classified into will, understanding, and memory. Then next is the every individual is a constitution. This is also most important contribution of Dr. Kent. Then Dr. Kent as a writer or author, in this the most important books, that is Kent's repertory, Kent's philosophy, and Kent's Materia Medica. These are the three important books that is written by Dr. Kent, and this is the, that is these books are very nicely help today also to the students to study the homeopathy very nicely. Then he was the also editor of various journals, and at last he died at the Montana on 6 June 1916. That is 6 June 1960. He took his last breath at Montana due to the bright disease. So this is the journey of Dr. Kent's life. In short, the biography of Dr. Kent's. I hope you all understand the biography of Dr. Kent. In next part, we will study the biography of Dr. Herring. So regarding the biography of Dr. Kent, if you have any difficulties or you can have any queries, you can ask me personally. But for this, you have to listen carefully about the biography of Dr. Kent. So thank you friends.